And this is a good slide which illustrates how the integration works in general. So if you have a Dynamics finance and operations on the top, and you have these different business objects, let's say in this case it's a customer object, could be a work order, could be a vendor, could be an asset, could be a functional location. So once this object is created, our integration will be triggered. So, and it will then use some kind of template in OpenText, and it will then use the data, like metadata that's coming from this object, some relations, and it will then create something we call a business workspace. Think about it as a special area dedicated for this object. Once this workspace is created, you eventually then, well, right away, you get it back into Dynamics embedded so that the users can then start attaching documents to this object through this embedded widget component, which I will show in the demo, of course. Simple overview, what the integration does. So it's pretty much creating these workspaces and updating these workspaces, passing all the metadata that you will decide or we'll decide together that's needed. There's also some functionality about handling native attachments, which I will mention in a demo. And finally, most important for the users, it's the ability to attach documents when they work with these objects in the context of Dynamics application. So what I have here is our, let's say, a test demo environment where we have a Dynamics finance and operations. And we have here pretty much all the modules installed, enabled. So with all these modules, you have certain functionality, as you know. So dealing with the procurement, dealing with the invoices, dealing with the assets, and so on. In this demo, we have a standard set of objects. Today, I will show accounts payable simple process where I'm going to create a new purchase order, and I'm going to use the vendor object to illustrate how the integration works. So therefore, I'm going to go as a, working with the accounts payable module, I will go and I will create a new purchase order that I have received from my vendor. So to do that, I'm going to choose my vendor I'm working with. So Pete McPetters. So this is all I need to provide now. So I'm going to just go and create this purchase order. The integration, what it does now is that since we have enabled or since we have a support for purchase order objects, it will then go and create a business workspace specifically for this purchase order. Although I haven't yet finished filling out the lines for this purchase order, I have some header information like the number of the purchase order, the vendor. So if you go to header, you see this information is up here. And right below, this is the place where end user is then presented with the like a tunnel into the OpenText. Think about it like that. And as you can see, specifically for this purchase order, there's a dedicated workspace created. And this is how the workspace looks like from the content kind of view. You basically see a structure which is defined then in a template, giving you a way to organize the content. It might be just 2 folders. It might be that you don't need the folders at all, but basically this is a template from which this workspace was then created. Other thing that happens is that when this workspace is created, you also decide what kind of information you pass onto this integration, meaning that when this workspace gets created, you have some of the details coming from Dynamics. In this case, we're using the title, that's, here. We're using the vendor information, purchase type, and some approval status. So all these details are now in OpenText. That means that once you create some documents, once you attach some documents, so these documents kind of gets indexed with the information of this purchase order. So just to illustrate the simplest use case now, I have this workspace created, and as a user, I need to then add the original, let's say, order document from this vendor. I have it, on my desktop in this case. So what I can do here, So I can simply take these two documents. So it's a bit slow. This is my virtual machine. And just drag them into this folder. And just like that, these documents are uploaded and they are now in OpenText environment. And this is the simplest way how you create a purchase order, meaning a new object. Could as well be an asset, could as well be a project. So the idea will be very similar. So you create an object and there's a dedicated workspace created with a folder structure, which will be then different for different object types. I will tell you more about these elements here because what we need to understand is that I'm not going to cover all the functionality you have here, but one thing you need to understand is everything you have natively in the OpenText environment, you will be able to do it here as well. So meaning you will be able to copy, move, look at the properties, edit the documents, and search and filter. And all of that you can also do from this widget. So another thing that I want to mention of this integration, it is also capable of creating relations. Let's say I'm finished with this purchase order. So what I want to do now, I want to go and check the information about the vendor. So I can go to the vendor. This was the vendor. And of course, for this vendor, I also have a business workspace, let's say a tab. And what you're going to see, you're also going to see a workspace embedded, but it has a slightly different structure just because we have a different template defined. When I look at this vendor, there's some interesting, information maybe I'm looking for. So what I can do, I can, see there's, something about this vendor. I can click on this document. So I have this viewer open. I see there's some information I need. I can switch the documents, then I see the memo that happened maybe a couple of weeks ago and so on. Other things I can do in this widget, I can filter. So if I'm not sure, let's say I'm coming on this top level, I'm not sure where the document is. What I can do, I can say, okay, I know it's a Word document. So first thing I know, I can filter on that. And I know that Mary actually created that document. I can use another filter, and this is how I can find the document pretty quickly. Also, I quickly mentioned that, of course, you can do some document management functionality. So therefore, you can go in this document, for instance, and you can open the information. So you want to know, let's say, what has changed. So maybe not for this document. I see this document has a couple of versions. So you could basically select these versions and do the comparison right from this view. Okay, so this is how you could, access the documents, work with the documents. There's also a separate, let's say, type of folder, which is called email folder. And once you open that, out of the box, you also see some email metadata, meaning that if you store emails directly in this email folder, you will have this informative view of the details about each email. So that's quite convenient. And one thing that I also want to show is that I showed you how you can drag and drop a document. So other things that I want to mention is that there's also a capability to, let's say, tag a document with some additional information when you upload. So for instance, if you do it like this, so I have another memo I want to upload. So just like before, I drag and drop it to this folder. But I have configured it so that once you do this in this folder, you are actually requested at least to provide what are you uploading. So you can say, okay, this is the budget estimate, for instance, and you then finish your upload with this selection. Why is that important? Is that gives more details about specific documents, and let's say once you tag it with that it's a budget, you will see something like the filter of the document type on the left side, meaning that it will then help you to find the information in a more structured way. So that's why we might consider using these requests for users when they have to provide some more details. And one thing that also that you noticed in the beginning, when I created the purchase order, I created it for this vendor, Pet Mock Petters. So as you can see right below here, when I'm looking at this object, there is also related purchase orders kind of folder. This shows all the purchase orders for this vendor. I don't need to go in Dynamics and find these purchase orders separately. I can access all the content right from this view. So I can open the previous purchase order that was created earlier. I can look at the, order confirmation, I can open this document, and maybe there's some more information that I need to know for this new purchase order maybe. So there is connection, basically, when you create a child object, in which case this was a purchase order for this vendor, it also creates connections, which helps you to navigate in between these relations, so to say. You could of course go also when you are now in this vendor, you could say, okay, so you want to see all the purchase orders for this vendor. You could go to this particular purchase order, and just like before, you would see this business workspace embedded. But keeping these relations, it just saves you some extra clicks. You can do that right from this widget view. One important thing is that, let's say you have opened this purchase order object and you're looking for a document. You are not sure if this document is stored in this PO workspace, or maybe it is stored in the vendor workspace. So what's useful here is that you can do a search, like a Google search. When you do that, what it does, it will search within this workspace, and it will also search within the parent workspace, meaning that you don't have to, guess in which workspace it is created. So it does some kind of cross workspace search because those two are related. This is how their search works as well. So you can do, and this is full text search, meaning that it will search within the content of a document, and it will search by the metadata of the documents as well. Which is quite powerful. So one final thing I want to show you, just to give you a broader perspective. Actually, there's two. So one thing is that I mentioned that there is something called native attachments. Okay, so what native attachment is, I will show you just like this. So let's say you have this widget. So this is one way of adding the documents to this vendor. So you can use the structure, you can drag and drop. You might have less folders, so that's fine. So this is the way you add something. Another way to add something to the workspace is you go and you use the native attachments functionality. I would guess not all of you are familiar with this, but this is basically in Dynamics natively how you can upload documents. And we have integrated this part as well, meaning that you can, let's say, upload a file to the native attachments area. So it could be temporary in the Azure or Microsoft. But what we do, we actually, in a few seconds, we pick up that attachment and we transfer it right into this workspace. So it should take few seconds, I guess, if it's, hopefully it is enabled for this one. But what it does eventually, it then replaces this native attachment. You see, it's already happened. So it was a file originally, but now it transferred it to the workspace. Okay, so that was the first step. So I'm just gonna probably, hasn't refreshed. So clear all. Yeah, you see, it's put it right in the workspace root, but we can configure it so it puts that also some folder called native attachment, maybe, if it makes sense. The idea is that once the document gets transferred into the workspace, it is then removed from the native attachment and it replaces it with the URL object. So, and that means that you can, if someone goes there, they can open the URL and it will take them right to this documents, kind of an overview page in the OpenText takes. So yeah, users can look at this document from this overview page. We do also have a possibility to, let's say, from the child object, transfer the attachment into the parent object, meaning that if I would be attaching something to the purchase order object, like order confirmation, that attachment can then be transferred into the parent workspace. So let's say under the invoices, or if it makes sense, or some other folder. So, and give you like this broader perspective is that the ones who are using OpenText directly, so they will have kind of a standalone UIs with landing pages. Hopefully most of you have seen it. But just to conclude is they can also access the same content, right? So they can go eventually to some managers, they can go to all the vendors list, and they can go to all the purchase orders page. So let's say I go in here. These are all the purchase orders I created, and you can have filters. You can even filter by the vendor. Say find all these 3 that I created. You open them up and you kind of access the same content basically. And in this native UI, you have some more functionality, if you remember, because you can have these landing pages and you can have some widgets and some possibly even some dashboards and reports eventually.